I'm happy to be the host of the Robert Welsh Club meeting. It's a pleasure. And I want to start off by saying I guess all of you survived April 15th. There's one fellow who didn't. The IRS disallowed a huge deduction. He deducted last year's taxes, said it was a bad investment. There was a fellow who went into the IRS office and he started smiling, and he went around to all the different people and he smiled and he put out his hand and everything. Somebody finally said, "Can I help you?" He says, "I just wanted to meet all the people I've been working for all these years." Now, I think you've probably all heard that Al Gore invented the internet and Dan Quayle invented spell check. And Bill Clinton invented the lie protector. And Al Gore willed his body to science recently. And science is contesting the will, I understand. Well, enough of that. That's what you call getting everybody in from the hinterlands. We're going to have several different people come and talk to us about different aspects of the work of the society and hit some of the subjects that we're all very interested in, of course. And we're going to start off with a fellow who's been on our staff for many, many years, first as a coordinator in the state of Idaho, and now as our Constitution protector. I've said in introducing him on many occasions that the Constitution certainly has been under attack through the Constitutional Convention route and so forth, and of course so many congressmen just ignore it completely, but keeping it alive and keeping it there is very, very important, a standard by which they can be measured. And the day will come, I think, when this man will be well known outside the John Birch Society for the job that he has done in protecting the Constitution from its enemies. He certainly deserves a great thank you from all of us. So, Don, come on up here and tell us what you have.
Thank you, Jack. What do all of these things have in common? Undeclared wars, orders by the President to fire and paid for by the Congress, foreign aid to our friends, foreign aid to our enemies, environmental protection, immunity for illegal aliens, the line item veto for the President, giving the President the option to alter and change legislation, U.S. recognition of international courts, Supreme Court opinions on pornography, abortion, school prayer, Bible reading, or for that matter, Supreme Court decisions on any state matter, United Nations treaties, including NATO, government burdens on religious freedom, confiscation of private property, a Congress that refuses to convict an impeached president, limitation of congressional terms, federal aid to education, and any number of other things that you may have seen taking place lately. What do they all have in common? They're all in violation of the Constitution, which is the same as saying that they're in violation of our freedoms, of our unalienable rights. These violations have taken place by usurpation of powers from one department to another, and then just by outright audacious actions of our government. And that is why the Constitution is so important to us. The Constitution is the foundation on which we stand. And just imagine for a moment if there were no Constitution, or if the Constitution had been taken away from us or so corrupted in the text itself as to condone or place in the Constitution these things I just read off to you, on what foundation would we work? Where would the John Birch Society go? Where would any patriotic, knowledgeable individual go to restore our freedom? As it is now, we have the enemy on the defensive because the Constitution says what we believe and not what they are doing. Now, I'm not saying they're losing any sleep over this. And they're not losing any sleep over it, because the individuals who understand and those who understand and don't speak out are not vocal enough, not loud enough, and our numbers are insufficient. But we don't plan on that being the case forever. We plan on having the Army to do the job. And when that Army is of sufficient size and influence, we have to have the Constitution. I don't think they're especially worried about it, but they are worried enough. I'm talking about the insiders, those who really run things. They are worried enough to fight us fiercely when we try to prevent the convening of a constitutional convention. Now, can't you just imagine today who would run a convention? If a convention were brought to order, who would be in control? Can you imagine what the media would do to that? Can you imagine what the Bill Clinton types would do to it? Can you imagine anyone from the White House being appointed a delegate to a constitutional convention? That's why the battle to preserve the Constitution is so important. It's number 3 on our agenda. And as Jack has indicated, and you may know, I've been deeply involved in this, but mainly from the standpoint of information. Involvement in the John Birch Society is not a top-down operation. We are not the experts whom you pay to go do something for you. We are the individuals who do the research and bring out the truth and create the tools with which you can save your country. That's why we're so distinctive. And that's why the Birch Society is so feared. You know, who cares about a bunch of guys with a mail-order business in Washington? Even if they have thousands of subscribers or millions of dues payers. Nobody's afraid of those guys. They're only afraid of the people. The people are what they fear, and that is why our battle is with the people. Our battle to preserve the Constitution must be with the people. Now, there is an element out there that I'm sure when you see it, it encourages you as much as it encourages us. And that is that when you mention to a friend or a neighbor that federal aid to education is unconstitutional, or that the Supreme Court has no original jurisdiction in all these moral issues, notice how they take notice. They say, really? Is that really unconstitutional? I never thought of that. But the important thing isn't that they never thought of it. The important thing is that they regard unconstitutionality as deeply as you do. They just don't know what is and what isn't. And that's our mission. That's a tremendous task that we have undertaken. I'd like to give you an example of having knowledge and being able to put it into use. Maybe some of you are familiar with what we call our no-con kit. We have a no-con kit in which members of the society can take these documents and sit down with a state legislator and go through the documents and educate him on the dangers of calling a constitutional convention and show him the tremendous arguments he has, the tremendous support he has, even from some of the so-called constitutional experts in the country. We've used these very effectively, and this information has worked for us in Alabama in getting the Constitutional Convention withdrawn there, the application by the state withdrawn there, also in Florida, also in Louisiana, and 4 weeks ago, almost to the day, we were able to get our convention call in Idaho withdrawn. A long process. So they now only have 28 states with the calls for the balanced budget amendment. And that is going to help us tremendously in winning other states, especially western states. The western states are tough. Why? Because so many of the western states have conservative congressional delegations. And they think somehow that this thing's going to balance the budget. In Utah, we've had measures before the legislature there to withdraw the convention call for many years. We've had a good man in the legislature there who has been promoting it. And whenever the body of the legislature is ready to withdraw their convention calls, in walks Orrin Hatch. And he gets the audience. He'll speak before both houses and tell them why he needs it. Say, look, if you vote for this, you're hurting me personally and politically. And what will people think of me if my own state lets me down? That's a tough act to follow. It's a tough battle to fight. Here is the value of information. A few years ago, about 5, maybe 6 years ago, I got a call from Reese Hunter in Utah, the legislator who's promoting this, and he said, "Can you come to talk to the legislature?" And I said, "Well, I think so. What's going on?" He said, "Orrin Hatch is going to be here tomorrow." He said, "He does this every time. He comes in, he says, I've got everybody on my side." He said, "This measure has already passed our committee. It's going to the floor tomorrow. And Orrin Hatch wants to talk to the House before we vote on it." He says, "Can you come out?" He said, "I talked to the Speaker. I said, this is unfair. We've already heard this in our committee. It's being sent to the floor for an up and down vote. The debating has already been done." He said, "If you're going to have Senator Hatch here, I deserve to have someone to speak for our side." And that was the biggest thing that has ever been on my shoulders. So I had to leave work then. I left my office. I went straight home. My wife said, "Where are you going?" I said, "I'm going to Salt Lake. Goodbye." And I was on a plane. I was there the next morning. In the legislature, in the rotunda, here was Orrin Hatch taking various legislators into a private room, and they were coming out of the room with a little piece of paper in their hand. And I thought, I know what he's doing. He's giving these guys questions to ask me. And sure enough, it turned out to be exactly what he was doing. The debate was fair. It was scheduled to last something like 48 or 50 minutes. We each had a 7-minute introduction moment, and then we were allowed 2-minute replies from questions from the floor. Hatch spoke and I spoke, and my problem was, in 2 minutes, no matter what the question was, I couldn't develop my arguments. I couldn't develop the questions I wanted to address. Well, as it turned out, every single question that Senator Hatch put in their hands was exactly the question I wanted asked. And you think my prayers weren't answered. Here I am quivering before this whole legislative body against this hotshot United States lawyer senator. All I could do was pray, and I said the silent prayer. I said, "Heavenly Father," I said, "please give me the power to develop my case." And here he did it for me. At one point, one of the representatives who had his little note in his hand, he said, because what they were doing, Hatch had assured, "Look, you have nothing to worry about. All amendments to the Constitution have to come back to the states for ratification. And you people aren't going to ratify anything that's unworthy of the Constitution." The legislator raised his hand and said, "Mr. Fatheringham," he said, "do you think anybody in this body would approve a spurious amendment, would pass a bad amendment to the Constitution?" And I said, "No, Mr. Lund, I don't. I don't think there anyone in this room would approve or ratify anything that would be harmful to the United States Constitution. But I said, many years ago, your fathers who sat in these same chambers also thought that they would never ratify the 21st Amendment, the repeal of prohibition. Congress was one step ahead of them. Congress had looked around the nation. They looked at the dry states, the Bible Belt states, and the state of Utah. They knew they would not abolish the legal sale of liquor, and they wouldn't vote for it. So what did they do? Congress read, and I'm explaining this to the legislature, Congress read the fine print in Article 5 and found that they could send the ratification to special ratifying bodies in the states according to the guidelines of Congress. So that's exactly what Congress did. The 21st Amendment was never passed by state legislatures. And I said, ladies and gentlemen, I said, your fathers who thought they were going to vote against the 21st Amendment were fooled. I said that measure was taken outside of this body and passed by a body of citizens who were selected by Congress according to their sentiments on this issue. I said, it has already happened to you once. I said, do you think if there's an amendment to the Constitution that they know you're not going to like, you'll ever see it again? The votes were taken, and we beat him by 4 votes. The key was not a sharp debate, and the key was not an official from the John Birch Society. The key was correct information. That is the foundation of our movement, ladies and gentlemen. We have to have the truth. In our council meeting early this morning, there was an excellent presentation on character. And there are a lot of people in this nation with character. But without correct knowledge, that character does not help. As a matter of fact, a person who's known to have character, who promotes false ideas, is more harmful than an enemy. You see how important it is. You can't have truth promoted without character and correct information. And we will not succeed without. This is your battle, it is our battle, and we're going to do the best we can to provide the tools and the materials we need to save our Constitution. And may God bless us in this effort.
Thank you, Don. As usual, thank you for your insights into the Constitution and how to protect it.